Welcome to the Main Idea, the unofficial Department of Entertainment Industry podcast. I'm your host, Jared Steele, interviewing different faculty and personalities around the Shoals and UNA, giving you tips and advice to survive the ever-changing music industry. All right, welcome to the Main Idea podcast. I'm your host, Jared Steele, and I'm here with the wonderful Dr. Brooks.
Thank you very much for having me today.
You want to give yourself a little introduction, or?
Yeah, I'm Charles Brooks. I teach audio engineering, MIDI and synthesis, and the DAW classes for the Department of Entertainment at the University of North Alabama and School for the Arts.
All right. We're just going to go ahead and get into the questions. What made you want to come teach at UNA?
Oh, man. Short answer to that is history. Long answer, or maybe not as long, but I'll flesh that out for you. My father was the band director at Tanner High School from approximately 73 to 84, and then he was also a band director at Bear Creek after that until about 91 or 92, and then we moved. So I am kind of homegrown. I'm from this area, and after looking for jobs for a while, I actually stumbled across this job by accident. It was a posting in one of the classifieds that I get emailed for higher education jobs, and my father got his music ed master's in music education here. So when I saw the link, I clicked on it, and it was everything I was already doing. So I applied for the job, and it all kind of fell together. So I wanted to come home on some level.
Yeah. I can understand that. I'm from this area as well. I mainly, personally, I came to UNA for, again, the history and just there's something here.
Oh yeah. No, I living in New Orleans for so long. You even not being from there, you begin to soak up some of the atmosphere, and you learn, especially if you're a musician, about how guarded that music is. And Muscle Shoals, although not known for jazz, has a very similar reputation and tradition, whereas we were responsible for many of the R&B songs that came out in the 60s and 70s, many made right there at Fame, including all of Aretha Franklin's catalog when she left Sony, Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman, Otis's Redding's Blue album. We could drone on and on about this kind of stuff, actually.
Yeah. So you mentioned teaching in Louisiana for a while. How was that?
It was wonderful. Louisiana is a very special place. I often joked a lot down there that everybody comes out of their birth experience waving a white flag going bom 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 bom, because it's kind of in their DNA. You cannot have an event without food and music. It's part of their rich heritage. And so being a performer and being a multi-instrumentalist, I was extremely active, and my network expanded, not just because of my assistantship and my fellowship with LSU, but because of my relationships in the city. So my network was extremely vast, and before COVID, I was turning down jobs because of how rich. So it was a fun environment to live in for sure.
Yeah. Circling back to your teaching career, what would you say is your favorite part of teaching?
There's a lot of stuff I love about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. That's pretty obvious. But for me, and if you have ever been teaching at a high school already or doing music lessons with young people that are just beginning, and you're trying to get them to accomplish something, and they've been working, and then it clicks, and the thing happens, and this look is on their face, and there's this thing in their eyes. It's like a twinkle, and in that moment, you have not done anything for someone. You have experienced a beautiful moment with someone, and I think that is the essence of teaching, and that's my favorite part, is when I've been working with someone and they have an aha moment, and that inspires them to take themselves further.
Yeah.
I truly believe, for me, that's where the marrow of everything lives.
Gotcha. Where all have you taught previously?
Oh, okay. Well, high school wise, I have been either an instructor or a part-time teacher at Allen County, Scottsville, Warren East, Warren Central, Greenwood, Cheatham County, Tennessee, Clarksville, uh, a handful of colleges or high schools in Tennessee. As far as colleges go, my first teaching gig was at LSU. I was a teaching fellow, and my job was to teach the ed majors their percussion methods, run the marimba ensemble, keep the studio clean for the assistantship, but then also too, I taught jazz lessons and stuff. So LSU was the first college job I had. I went on the road for 2 years after that, and then I got hired at the University of Minnesota. I did that for a year, and it's so cold there. I came home very quickly and got a job at Baton Rouge Community College, where I opened the entertainment division down there. And I've been there for the past 25 years teaching this, and UNA is my current position. So that's where I've been.
All right. I know there's some people that may see what we do as not as important as some of the other departments in the university. How important do you think the entertainment industry department is to not just UNA but any college?
Oh, well, that's a good question, and it's relatively heavy depending on your perspective. I think it's extremely relevant in the 21st century. And this opinion has been formed over decades, kind of like the Grand Canyon, right? So, as a kid, I'm on the road at 15 with my dad, and all of the bandmates are middle-aged men, and they keep their stuff in our garage. So I have access to PA and keyboards, and I was never not in there blowing something up, right? So I have access to technology. By the time I get to college and I'm an ed major, I'm kind of ahead of everybody because I was getting that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Plus the ed stuff. By the time I finished, no one was quite making beats yet. I mean, they kind of were, but sequencers were still standalone, gargantuan, mechanisms that you had to plug into an amplifier or headphones to hear.
Yeah.
We didn't have any of the USB connectivity that we have. And then when I finished my doctorate, and I wasn't sure where I was going to go, my parents went to my music guy in Nashville at a place that I don't believe is there anymore. It was called Corner Music. Corner Music was really nice to me. They used to let me come in their keyboard room and just make noise all day and never yell at me or kick me out. And so they knew that. And they went down, and at the time, I think Apple's laptop was called a G4. And my stepdad has been in the computer game since '82. And I respect his opinion immensely when it comes to digital technology and how to use it proficiently and how to use it ethically. And I also respect the guy at Corner Music. And so they gave me this thing as a gift, and I was very grateful. And I said, "You didn't have to do this." And they said, "Well, we kind of did. We wanted you to have a present. But also your guy told us when he handed me this stuff that if your boy doesn't know this in 3 years, he won't be employable anywhere, and it won't matter if he's a teacher or not."
Yeah.
And I took that to heart. I locked myself in the room and started teaching myself. I was already working in studios off and on as a musician and as an engineer. Like I said, I'd been doing it my whole life. And so in the modern world, in the 21st century, even the education student, regardless of it's music or math or physics or English, technology is a part of our lives, and I don't think it's intelligent to operate without that understanding. For instance, you've taken a class with me, right? When I put a test up, I put it up on Sunday nights, and I talk about it in class. I field questions, and it's not due till Friday night. And I don't feel that the classical testing method is beneficial to us anymore, because once you guys graduate and you're on the job, when you run across something, you're going to get your device out and you're going to Google it.
Right.
And probably watch a video or maybe find a tutorial or a post in a trusted room somewhere where somebody says, "I had this problem. This is how you fix it." And so we live in the information age.
Yeah.
So when I test people, I tell them, yeah, pull the PowerPoints down. They're yours to have. They're just talking points. You have to use them with the book, and you have to use them with your own notes. Have all the information ready and have it organized. And so I believe our department is essential in giving musicians who aren't really looking to be high school or collegiate professors but want to work in our industry, because you know as well as I do, there's about 500 or 600 jobs between hitting record and shopping the album out.
Right.
And there's a bunch of smaller gigs that you guys can use to support yourself. And so teaching jobs are also competitive, by the way.
Yeah.
They're very hard to obtain, and if you have one, they're hard to maintain. And so any life that you pick in the arts is going to be difficult, but if you have a practical skill set, say, I tell you guys all the time in class, you have to be 50-50 balanced. You have to be 50% artist and 50% scientist so that you can make the vision that you have, whatever creative vision that is. So I believe we're extremely relevant. I don't believe we're more important than any other discipline, but I do believe we deserve a seat at the table next to them.
Right.
At least.
Yeah. I can totally see that. As, again, we're in a specific spot with being where we are in the Shoals and this rich music history we have. I know our 50th anniversary is coming up.
Absolutely.
As well. And it's definitely a special time to be a student at UNA.
I feel like it is, and both of us are kind of lucky. This is my 4th year being here, and to be here for the 50th anniversary. We have the big event at the end of the year, but then we have the real event that's going to happen in August or September, and that should bring out some alumni. Yeah. And those are some people with some big names behind them that have gone on to do great things in the industry, and some that are still here holding this area down or working at Fame or Muscle Shoals Sound or any of the other litter of studios that that are in Muscle Shoals.
Yeah. Circling back to, in your undergrad, were there any times that you had like a specific challenge you had to overcome, or a time that was like, very challenging?
Oh man. Yeah, I should probably write a book. I will share with you one of the most challenging. And that was my parents' divorce.
Yeah.
Mind you, at the time, on paper, I was grown. I was 20 or 21. I was already living off campus in my own self-sustaining apartment. But my parents were very good at putting the show on and making everybody believe everything was cool, even though they were both miserable.
Yeah.
And so when I moved out, my brother was at the age where he started college, and I think they both felt an appropriate moment to create space for themselves. But the way they did it was abrupt and slightly abrasive to each other, and my brother and I had to share that fallout. And I remember the illusion that I thought was my family was shattered. And ironically, I was taking an educational psychology class as part of my ed degree, and the assignment my teammate and I had to do was the effects of divorce on high school kids. It was life, man, life, yeah. Right? So we give the thing, everybody goes, yay, that was great. The teacher says, well done. Does anybody have any questions? And then the young lady in the back raised her hand, and we called on her, and she said, you guys have a lot of data about high school kids, but what about college kids? How does that affect them? And so I spoke to my experience and shared a little bit with that class, and I believe we all were educated in that moment, including myself.
Yeah.
So I had money issues, I had car issues, I got dumped by people, I have a typical trajectory in college when it comes to that kind of stuff, but I believe the dissipation of the family unit was a thing that kind of broke a psychological manifestation that kind of supported me and my brother, and we had to reform our idea of what that meant.
Yeah.
And that's actually where Phi Mu Alpha came in at the time for me and my brother both hugely. They became our family, and they took care of us until we graduated.
Yeah. So you mentioned Phi Me Alpha being a brother of that fraternity.
Yeah.
Obviously they helped you out a lot during your divorce. Were there any other instances that they might have helped you out throughout the rest of your college career?
Oh, absolutely. Shortly after my parents' divorce, my father passed away.
Yeah.
He had, at this time, 2 or 3 cancer surgeries. And I mean, he was just a bulldog, man. He was working 2 jobs up until the last hospital stay.
Yeah.
And even then, when he would wake up and see me sitting next to his bed, he would say, "What are you doing here? You should be playing music somewhere. You need to be practicing." "No, Daddy, I should be here with you." "No, man, you shouldn't be here watching me sleep. You should be playing drums."
Yeah.
And so, being the oldest in a broken family, you wind up getting kind of the responsibilities that adults are supposed to be teaching you how to handle. And I remember, even in this moment right now, being able to speak about it better than I have previously been able to. I can still remember when everybody left, my entire frat was there. It was 27 of us.
Yeah.
And when they all left, they all gathered around me. And they sang the parting song. And then they sang Hail Symphonia.
Yeah.
And it was over with. They all stayed and hugged me until I was okay to make it back to the car.
Yeah.
This is a special group of people that don the letters. And to this day, I can contact any of them and say help, and they'll say how. And for all intents purposes, I still consider them my family.
So I've had a similar situation. Obviously, but for listeners, my sophomore year, I had to take a semester off because my father was dying, and much like your father, man was working up until about his body gave out
5 minutes before.
Yeah, in the middle of a gas station, oddly enough. But definitely having a support system like that it's
priceless.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the crucial parts of college.
Oh yeah,
and it doesn't necessarily have to be Greek life.
No, it doesn't. I mean, you can create your own. That and to that point, that is kind of. I mean, when I was at Western, Phi Me Alpha was really strong. And most of those gentlemen went on to be the principal bassoonist in the Cincinnati Orchestra, or one of my best friends. His name's Darren Abram. I love this man. I just spent 3 days doing a residency at Mayfield High School in Kentucky, and I worked with his band, and they just won the 1A state Kentucky division. And then I saw actually this morning before we came up here to meet that he is being awarded the National Arts Teacher of the Year award.
Really?
Yeah. He walked out of Western into Mayfield and stayed there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And has built a program in an area that was devoid of music until his presence. I have a profound amount of respect for that man.
Yeah. That's definitely speaks to how music can flourish anywhere.
It only needs an ear and a heart, if I'm being honest. And it's quite possibly one of the most important things we can do for ourselves.
Right.
I mean, that's my humble opinion.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for any newcomers to this department?
I do. One of the things teaching this content at 2 or 3 different places that I run into, not so much here because it's an industry town, right? You know, a lot of people are working in studios, so there's no veil over their professional eyes, so to speak. However, a lot of people hear the phrase entertainment industry or entertainment studies, and the default mechanism, well, that's an easy degree to get. It's a fluff class or something like that. And I can tell you, even being here, I've had too many instances where I have had to say, what are you doing? How come you don't understand this? And nobody's practicing or nobody's studying. And I find out that they might have been a music major in performance or education major, and they had a hard time there, so they thought they would come down here, only to find out that our area is just as demanding in technical proficiency, musicality,
Right.
tenacity, and your overall willingness to work for yourself,
Yeah.
which is basically any degree. So my advice to anybody coming here is to walk in with your eyes open, your ears open, and be open to different modes of thought. And even if you have created something and you have a certain level of accomplishment, come in with that same mentality, because if you do that, the teachers we have here, the diversity, I don't believe you'll get it anywhere else.
Right.
Like the level of diversity. I'm a classically trained musician with 8 studio albums under his belt and 20 years of proficient live technical production. Alex Witzchek has been on the road with some of the biggest names in rock and roll, plus John Paul White, an 8-time Grammy Award-winning songwriter. And Jenna Malone cut her teeth at Fame Studio for 15 years. Those 4 areas, if you hang out with us, you leave with a serious skill set.
Right.
And I really enjoy this part of it. And so if you're coming here, come here ready to do some work and realize that the work is fun, but it can be hard.
Yeah.
The work is fun, but it can be frustrating. The work is fun, but it can be tedious if you're taking Pro Tools, right?
I'll attest to that.
It can be very tedious, but if you can apply yourself, you leave here with a skill set that makes you competitive in an otherwise crowded market. It gives you a leg up in instances where you might not have had an opportunity. And if you come here and listen and work diligently and kind of let yourself be shaped a little bit, you evolve in a way that you control, but is amenable to you as well, which means that you can go to a job interview with the utmost confidence, even being a fresh graduate. You can walk out of here and start working. I mean, in the small amount of time I've been here, our students are already doing things. The young lady I was speaking to is about to start working for the Nashville Sounds. She's already running media at Opryland. Another young lady's in New Orleans working for a label. We've got people working all over the industry. Alexandra West, do you remember her? She was in your freshman class right before you took your semester off.
Yeah.
So she graduated, and I got her a couple of gigs, and the people I contracted her out to called me and said, man, she wants twice as much as she did last year. And I said, well, she graduated, and she's got some experience. She's a good technician. She came in here the other day to pay somebody because she started her own LLC, and she's holding down like 6 different venues right now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's insane.
So, yeah. So they're really... there's no limit to what we can offer you. There's always a job if you're willing to look in the right spot and listen and capitalize on the opportunity. So if you come here with the preconceived notion you're already a producer, you're already done.
Yeah.
That's the biggest piece of advice I have. No one that comes here is ready to be anything other than a student. And any good producer will tell you, even if they have that moniker, they're still a student because they're learning and evolving too.
Right. And that was a mindset personally I had to change, my first couple years in my undergrad, was that I came in thinking that, I mess around on Studio One for a while and get a MIDI keyboard, I'm a producer,
Yeah, you do know some things. There's something to be said for self-starting. I believe I'm a unicorn in that sense, because I have had to self-start or motivate because I've had my own bands before, right?
Yeah.
And when you lead a band, or you have to self-start. But I'm also a product of the classical system, and I see the benefits of that. And as I have progressed through my career, you come across people, say like Herbie Hancock,
Yeah.
and Chick Corea, who are classically trained musicians, But you never hear that because what they play, jazz wise, is so intricate and so complex that you never stop to think, where did that come from? And Art Tatum was the same way. He was the guy that developed the double time stride left hand when everybody was playing a single time stride.
Yeah.
And he was classically trained as well. So I think that if you can harness a little bit of each side, your batting average for success goes up immensely.
Yeah.
That's been my experience personally, professionally, and with all of my students. Because believe it or not, at other places I've had people that come in and they don't really call themselves a producer, but they do underestimate how much work putting a show on is.
Right.
Until they put a show on, and at the end of the night, the show's over, and they feel like they've been running for a week, at full blast. And I'm going to bed. Go home and go to bed. Because this is hard work. It's fun, but it's hard.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch to, what advice do you have for guys who are graduating and getting into the job market, as I've seen it change definitely over the past 5 years or so.
Oh yeah, it's going to evolve too.
Yeah.
When you graduate, I would say you could probably count on a cycle of change every 2 to 3 years. With the advent of AI and people messing with quantum computing, that might even be a yearly thing in your near future.
Yeah.
Maybe not mine, but probably yours. What was the question?
What advice do you have?
Advice for people that graduate. Yeah. Okay, so one of the things that has made me successful is my ability to see things and see opportunities when other people don't see them. And that is a skill that can't really be taught. It can only be learned over time. And so it's reading a room.
Yeah.
When you walk into, for instance, any situation, professional or collegiate, if I walk into a room full of people that I've never met, my mouth stays shut and my ears go open, and I start getting a read for the room, and I can usually tell who's in charge within about 5 minutes. I can usually tell who's going to be my best helper within about 5 minutes. I can usually tell who's going to be my biggest problem within about 2. So learning how to read a situation, finding an opening that's natural and organic without forcing it. Yeah. Because that is one thing in our industry that will get you kind of booted out of an office or turned down, is if you're listen to my thing, if you're pushing it too hard. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend who got his doctorate at UT Austin in saxophone studies. My friend Jamel, incredible saxophonist, and we're on social media, and I haven't spoken to him since we graduated, but I see he's giving a saxophone concert with his quartet or quintet, and he says, does anybody have any literature? We're looking for a closing piece. Well, instead of saying good for you, good luck, I DM'd him and said, hey man, would you guys want to premiere a new piece of music? At this point in my career, my audio CV is straight, my teaching CV is straight, and my performance CV is straight. My composition CV needed some attention.
Yeah.
And so he said, let me check. They got back to me and said, yeah, if you're willing to write something and get it to us. So I wrote a saxophone quartet. I sent it to them in enough time. They dug it. After the phone call, a couple of weeks went by. He got back in touch with me and said, hey, I need a bio. Can you write up something about the piece? Can you send a picture? And I'm like, I thought I got the thing to you in enough time. And he said, you did. I'm going on NPR next week to promote it. And I'm like, that's cool. He goes, yeah, Confluence Saxophone Quartet is a division of the Denver Symphony Orchestra. This is part of their programming for the season.
Yeah.
I said, shut up, because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wanted to have people playing. So my friend went on NPR, which I know that doesn't probably have a wide demographic as maybe some pop stations, but he was saying my name on NPR on a nationally broadcast. He was saying my music. They were playing my music at this recital. I didn't even have to go to Colorado for people to say my name.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of that, I told Jamel, I said, if anybody likes this piece and they ask you my rates or what it was like, your response is that I'm very reasonably priced. Because he's a friend, I wrote it for free. And sometimes in our business, you do things like that to gain access or to get opportunity or a leg up. And so since then, I don't write a lot of saxophone quartets, but I do get phone calls because I do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So learning how to read a room and creating a situation where there doesn't seem to be one has always been the hallmark of success for anybody. Look at Ray Charles. He was imitating Nat King Cole for the longest time. And when Atlantic bought him from that guy in Memphis, and it wasn't Stax, it was another label, they paid, I think, like $3,000 for the Ray Charles catalog.
Yeah.
And then they turned him loose, and he started making his music, and that was an opportunity that other people didn't see that Ray Charles, ironically, could see.
Yeah.
And capitalize on and create an entirely new genre of music with limitless possibilities. You go listen to the tune Georgia, and not only do you hear the blues, you hear an orchestra.
Yeah.
You hear, even though Ray Charles wasn't classically trained, he had classical style chops. And so there's story after story after story about people like this, but I would say that's the one thing when you're graduating, keep your eye open. Rely on your network and don't insert yourself into a situation, but offer help when you see somebody needs it. If there's something that you believe like you can provide, you offer it in a way that doesn't seem intrusive. And if you can do that, you can be very successful.
All right. And go ahead and wrap up here. Where can people find your work?
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I am on every streaming platform. Part of my TuneCore distribution, they offer me that little incentive or amenity, whatever you want to call it. I do have a website. It's thecharlesbrooks.com, and that has all the links that you can use to find out about me. And I have a link tree that also has some separate links. So if you go to the website, you can find me. But that's really the best place, probably the website. That has all the links to stuff I've done. There's even some free stuff, like I made a Christmas album you can download for free at Christmas time if you want. All of my YouTube stuff has links there, the big stuff, when I do something that's important, or when my band plays, there's 3 or 4 different places you can go on the website and look at different shows. There are the Pink Floyd experiences up there, so thecharlesbrooks.com is the best place to find everything about me.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on to this podcast. And to the listeners, I want to thank you for listening to The Main Idea, and I will see y'all next time. Thank you for listening to The Main Idea.